All right, let me introduce my panelists, three distinguished gentlemen. Karibuni sana. And I begin with my immediate left, where we have Honorable Alpha Ondieki Miruka, who is the MP for Bomachoge Chache.
Kisi. Asante.
In Kisi County.
Yeah.
Just next to him, we have Gibson Gisore, who is a constitutional lawyer and also a leadership and governance expert. And just next to him, we have Tolsten Alenga, who is also a policy and governance expert. Gentlemen, karibuni sana.
Thank you very much.
First of all, let's begin with what we have been watching here, and especially I'm quite sure it resonates very well with you with you, because there have been talks about legislation. But first things first, the president has handed a check of 5 million shillings and also handed some keys to the record breaker Faith Kipyegon. Mheshimiwa.
That's so encouraging, eh? In fact, it's the best thing I've ever seen a president doing. Let me tell you, appreciating those young people, they really struggle a lot. And they come from a humble background. When you find that, you may find that they even don't own houses, but because of that talent, when the president himself appreciates that one, that's a very big step in terms of talent promoting and recognizing our youth and the young people, that when you invest in talent pays more than a career. In fact, within a second, he has been given now 5 million check with the key of a house of worth 6 million. So encouraging. Kudos to the president.
Yes.
Yes.
Wakili.
I guess I want to congratulate the world beaters who are the sportsmen of Kenya who raise our flag in foreign lands. And you know, there's nothing sweet, Troy, like a national anthem being played in one of the major cities in the world, that a certain person from a village in Kenya, which may not even be known, has explored their talent, and our flag is being raised in foreign land and our national anthem being played several years sometimes. So that feeling gives me the joy that I'm proud to be a Kenyan, and I guess it should be able to reverberate across the leadership of this country, because we have a lot of things to celebrate, except the small things which we get wrong. So when we see this, we need to encourage this. From a legal perspective, I would want to add that we need, through Mheshimiwa, I think if Mheshimiwa needs assistance, we'll help him draft a bill, which is going to help anchor this in law, so that anybody who breaks a world record like Faith has done, or Romanya has come from wherever, he has put in a lot of work. I'm sure even those guys he's competing against, they know it's a matter of time that he's going to beat them. I can see the fear in them when after they have won, they still look at the guy and wonder, did I beat this guy? Because the fear is in them, because he has created that atmosphere. So the potential he has is going to make us really happy in the near future, and I hope that we can have this in law, so that it's not about tokenism, it's about an entitlement. If I do this, I will be able to get a specific set of pack, which I should be able to even I should be able to report back to my family that, you know, I used to run, and this is what gave me what it is that you're enjoying now. My grandfather, I have to say, used to be an athlete, and for the stories he used to tell me, now is since past, he used to tell me that I mean, it was very interesting that he could be able to run, and some of the things, even the cows he got to marry my grandma, it was through running, and even he got to join the police force because of his running, which of course gave him a base to provide for the family. So those are some of the things we need to look at and be able to encourage.
Alenga, the gesture by the president and also by the Ministry of Sports, we've seen the minister and also the chair of the sports committee in Parliament were there at State House, and they have promised that they will better things for people who fly the Kenyan flag. We have seen athletes in Kenya decide to switch allegiance to other countries, and when you hear what they are given vis-a-vis what they get here in the country, you say, well, it's a good thing that they despite the fact that they are Kenyans and they have decided to switch allegiance, it's good for their career and their bill as well.
First and foremost, Troy, many thanks for welcoming me to your show once again in such a long time, and good morning to our viewers.
It's been a while.
Yeah, sure. So I want to say this with clarity of thought, that it's a very good moment to see athletes being recognized by the head of state, because for a long time these ladies and gentlemen have been winning on the international platform, taking the Kenyan flag out there and raising it high on a huge summit of hope and excellence. And back home we just keep quiet on them. Usually we will see them just being welcomed by their tribesmen at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, and that ends there. So when we start walking this path of recognizing those who are doing outstanding efforts in society, then it encourages those young children that are dreaming of being athletes, being footballers and all that. It might not be forgotten also, in the same breath, the president recognized Michael Olunga, who is doing great in football, and he's scoring really much outside there, and he's actually leading the Kenyan team that has gone out to play just yesterday. So when you look at that kind of atmosphere, it's really a good thing. So we must really be very frank and congratulate the president for leading this. And then just as Wakili said, we need to now establish a long-lasting framework that then recognizes all these efforts, so that when they come in, there is already an existing framework of reward and recognition. We have seen in a very long time, we have rewarded the wrong people. You in the media have a record of that. We cannot even count the number of times we've recognized the wrong people that cannot even give any encouragement to our children out there. But then when we start like this, we have started rewriting our wrongs, and this is very good. I expect and I am hoping in the next Mashujaa Day, we're going to see many honors coming in that order. That will be really good.
Yes, and gentlemen, I would really love for us to discuss that for the next 2 hours or so, having started out as a sports journalist, so I feel quite tied to that as well. But away from that, Mheshimiwa, the bill itself, of course it has rattled a lot of feathers. Let's first begin with Wanjiku today. The bill itself was written in English, which of course locks out a lot of Wanjikos. And another thing is that the public participation was not, if you ask me, it was quite short. This is something that we need to relook at.
Yeah, of course I agree, the period was a bit short. Okay, it follows the nature of the bill. There are some bills, when they go to public participation, that's adequate time. But for this one, because it was affecting most key issues, affecting our Kenyans, it needed some time. But remember, that's now as per the law and standing orders. You may not change the time frame for public participation for a specific bill. It's there uniform for any bill. But again, it's good that it went for public participation. But I doubt whether Wanjiku was closed out. I'm sure the input, if you see the bill now, the committee has done some changes.
The amendments they've had in
yeah, they have in Naivasha. They retreated in Naivasha. They've recommended some slight changes. For example, in fuel and housing levy, they are trying to say we reduce the housing levy from 3% to 1.5%. That means 1.5% from the employer and the 1.5% from the employee. It makes now 3%. Remember, it was 3%. And again, it has made some changes between if you earn now 500,000 to 800,000, your pay should increase by 2.5%, not 5%. Now from 800,000 to above, then it will be now 5%. They have done some tremendous changes, which I'm sure we're going to adapt in the floor of the House. But the bill is not popular to Kenyans because of the negativity of the other people.
And again, it's in English. We don't have it in Kiswahili, I believe.
All in vernacular.
No, at least not vernacular. Let's say Kiswahili.
That is true, by the way. We should be having a bill in Kiswahili for the Wanjiku to understand it.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, even if it's in English, we have many people interpret it the way they understand it to Wanjiku.
Unfortunately, when we are trying to translate that, Wanjiku has to rely on politicians, and we know as politicians there's somewhere where your bread is buttered, so you have to look at that, because Azimio, they are about to throw out the bill, but in your brigade, Kenya Kwanza, they have said that they're going to support that. So Wanjiku is at the mercy of Mheshimiwa.
But let me tell you, the bill is going to assist Wanjiku. Yeah. In fact, the bill in its totality, it's focusing on Wanjiku's welfare. Because the housing levy is giving houses for the Wanjiku. Yeah, the rich people have the houses. You have the house in yourself, you have a mortgage. But now the 2.5%, if it's passed, or 3%, or 1.5%, if it's passed, then the Wanjiku will get a house. Remember, the bill is now generating more revenue to the country. That means we are going to have more money circulating in our country, in our economy. Then now Wanjiku will benefit. We will be having more development in terms of road network. We'll be having quality education. Universal health care will be catered for. Now the bill is trying to broaden the tax correction base. In that way, we are able to sustain our needs as a country.
All right. Wakili, looking at this bill, we saw the Busia Senator Okia Omtata decide that he's not even going to wait until it becomes an act of parliament, and he decided to seek redress in the corridors of justice. What remedies do we have? Or was his petition a little bit more premature?
There's no petition which can be premature, and I want to congratulate Okia Omtata that even after transitioning to parliament, he still has the ear of the people and is acting in the best interest of the people. You realize that for the longest he has been the person fighting public interest litigation, much as he's not an advocate, and that gives impetus to our constitution, which allows any sound Kenyan or who feels that the constitution is being offended should be able to courageously move to the court and be able to ensure that that is arrayed the fears which Kenyans have, or if the government wants to make a move against the public which is not fair, can be able to be addressed by the court. And Okia Omtata has been leading that. That is very commendable. For what he expects, I think what we expect from the courts is the court to look at the whole bill in a very sober way, because it affects Kenyans. What I think is Okia is going to court for is not that it should not be passed. What he's actually arguing is at the sections which offend the constitution, and he pointed out quite a number of them, which are highlighted in his petition. And once the court can be able to sit and deliberate on this, whether they are constitutional or non-constitutional, then we can be able to, because there's no reason we pass a bill which is going to offend the constitution, because the constitution is normally referred to as the grand norm, the key document which we derive our governance, which we derive our leadership, which we derive our operations as government. If we start offending it for the sake of collecting money or for the sake of any other interest, then we might as well throw it away and just start operating on whims of people. So that is why I want to commend Okia Omtata for that effort, and we hope the court will be able to find a favorable decision in that particular respect, so that we don't proceed while we leave the constitution behind. That has been the norm in the previous constitution, which we had, because it was not clear-cut, and political leadership or political whims used to take the order of the day. It's very sad that whatever politicians conceive in their mind is as good as law. However much we have a constitution which needs to guide them. So we need to have certain parameters, and these parameters can only be derived from the constitution, that whatever you do in this particular, for example, Troy, if I might just give you a small sneak proof, we're talking about this money. However much Mheshimiwa is elated that it has been reduced to 1.5 to make a total of 3%. Under which framework? Because the finance bill is not going to be the framework for building houses. We need a legal framework. I mean, I saw somewhere they are talking about that whoever steals this money can only be fined 10,000. I mean, this is a huge money we have collected from Kenyans. We need a clear framework which we need to discuss and agree that indeed we are building houses and this is the framework. So the 3% we are giving, we understand where it's going. Now, we are being hoodwinked to give the 3%, more or less threatened and forced to give the 3%. And then thereafter we start figuring out, how do we go about the legal challenges? That is very wrong. Policy needs to be in place first. We need to have the legal framework in place first before you even start talking about building houses. Building houses is not a walk in the park.
Wakili, one of the proposal has been that it can be pushed to about January next year to give us around 6 months or so to plan and put the right framework so that the exercise may kick off from maybe January.
I will agree with that because what I don't want to have is another scam. Kenyans are good at making scams. And when you see something being forced around, and that's a lot of money, once you collect all that money from Kenyans and you don't have a clear framework, it will first be stolen. I mean, people are suffering. So if somebody who is put in charge and there's no clear, will first run away with it, get fined 10,000, and then you will relax.
All right, we will be looking at that because it's a proposal by MP GK Ruko. But Tolsten, we had the president and also the minority whip, Junet Mohammed. They both more or less like threatened the members with dire consequences if they go against either voting or not voting against aid. And where does this leave Wanjiku? She is the one who elected these members of parliament who we expect to vote for or against the bill.
Troy, when discussing this finance bill, a couple of things come to the fore. Number one is the infallible nature that our governments usually assume, the godliness, the godlike nature that they cannot be wrong, they are always right. That's why you find things are being pushed down the throat. Even despite people from many quarters saying we are not comfortable with this. As it were, Kenyans do not oppose a finance bill. Kenyans are opposing a couple of issues within that finance bill. So if we have a government for the people and by the people that recognizes that there is room for dialogue, there is room for listening to their employers who are the people, then that government will be willing to discuss further, because it's not like we are dying tomorrow. We have time. We can actually sit on the table and streamline that bill and agree about a couple of things. Number two, the second issue that comes to the fore is the mischief within that bill, and the mischief is largely in the housing levy, because if we look at it practically, the government is telling you, for the first time, the government is so serious about providing you a house. Like, they really want you to have a house no matter what. Whether you had another one, the government wants to add you another one, you know? So then I ask myself, if you're married, your wife is being deducted their percentage, you're being deducted your percentage, is government going to give you 2 houses so you agree where you live or where you meet? There is also the issue of the amount being contributed. Is that amount really enough to buy someone a house? So that's the mischief around that. So ideally, what I understand from all this thing is that this housing levy is something disguised to replace foreign borrowing. So instead of borrowing, let's get some money from Kenyans here and there. If we do like a deduction for 1 year, and then we do the second year, at least we will have gotten the float to run the country for the next 3 years.
Imagine before they out 8-9 billion.
Before they realize there was no house coming forth. Because if somebody seriously wants to provide you a house, but is also providing you with an exit strategy after 7 years, they only need that thing for some time, you know, just to stabilize them. So government would have been very frank and just tell us, We don't have money. Let's form a larger WhatsApp group for the country. Whatever you have, throw in there. No, we'd have.
That's
I'm sure you have something to say about that. And before we do that, let's first of all cross over to Kisumu and get some sentiments from Kenyans there. Because Mheshimiwa, a number of Kenyans have argued that the 8-9 billion shillings per month could offer some good money for the government to do its work, but the government just marinate on. Mheshimiwa, do you believe this is most controversial bill that has been in the recent past?
This is one of the most controversial bills in the recent past in the history of Kenya.
Yes.
The advantage is, let me give you some insight of this. There is no budget in the Republic of Kenya which should be read all in the process of making without a financial bill. In the budget categorically says that we are going to need this amount of money, for example, 80 billion shillings to make our roads. This amount of money to do our greater sector. Now this money, the financial bill defines where the money is coming from. In every year, that's what happens. But in this particular case, is that now the president is very generous. He's trying to explain to Kenyans that in this government I'm running, this is where I'm going to collect my money to run the government. And this is how I'm going to do it. In this now understanding, most people don't want him to implement. They are now opposing it.
Yeah, but
it's a normal process in budget making.
Picking from what we were talking about here, Tolston raised a very pertinent issue. Yes, he talked about even the people who knock at your gate in Bomachoge Chache, they don't knock at your gate to ask for houses.
Those people knock in my gate, they don't have employment. They are unemployed. Remember, the housing levy is affecting the employed people who have the payslip. And the essence of this employed people to be deducted 1.5% is to make a house for those ones who don't have. Let me tell you, in the bill, if this is going to, listen, if this is going to be passed, every constituency should be having a minimum of 100 units. Assuming in Kisii County we have now 200 units being constructed for a period of 5 years. Can you figure out how many employment? How many young people will go there to work in that 5 years? How money will be secured within that economy? That means housing is one way of creating employment for young people. The only challenge is a casual, is not permanent employment. For a short period of time, he gets money, he changes his life, and he moves on. Number two, let my colleagues understand how you are supposed to contribute. Your pay slips should be deducted, and this money is gonna be pooled in one center. If you are not interested in buying a house, within 7 years you request for refund of the money back. But if you're interested, the housing levy and the housing project targets for the low income earners between 10,000 to 26,000. You are going to own a house whereby you contribute 1,000 a month for 24 years, and you own a 2-bedroom house. That goes for around 5 million, 4 million. We are trying to create affordable houses for the people who don't have employment. That's the essence, actually.
All right. Wakili, some pundits have argued that Azimio principles want the bill to sail as it is, because that will give them leverage and political fodder for the mandamanos that the civil societies have talked about. Because a lot of Kenyans and even civil societies have said that if this goes and passes, then we will have to go to the streets, of which the CS has warned against that. Do you believe that is indeed the principles could be, they want it to pass so that they may even remain relevant in the political scene? I'm quite sure Mwashiwa could say yes, but let's first of all hear your response.
On the political circles, Troy, anything is possible. If I see you are trying to insist to fail, then I will encourage you on so that you fail. I have a reason to again say you elected a failure. So that could be one. But I think from their quarters, they have been very clear that they don't want the bill. They don't want the bill to pass, and they have shown all signs. But if that comes to pass, that it passes, then they will have another reason. In politics, you create a reason out of even nothing. So they will have another reason to jump into the streets and demonstrate and say, you see, this is what we told you, now it has happened. So other than that, let's try to be a bit careful and cautious on how we deal with Kenyans. Mheshimiwa has been very clear on how this is supposed to be done, but from my legal perspective, I still see some danger, because lacking a clear framework on how this is going to be implemented, because currently we are talking about the Kenya Mortgage Refinance, which is an act. That has not even picked, which was set up in Uru's time, and that has been ongoing. So are we going to abandon it? We have the National Housing Corporation, which has been doing houses and giving houses to the people. Why don't you just incentivize that? Give them this money, because that one has been running, I think, for almost the entire period we have been independent. Incentivize them, get this money, be put under that particular docket. They do houses for people, as they have been doing, and they have never been asking for money from people to build houses. They have been building houses. There is Uru's projects which were done in Gara. Houses were done. Why don't we continue with that framework also under the KMRC? We ensure that this goes on. We even sit down and say, now, maybe this has not picked pace, let's take it to the constituencies, the way Mheshimiwa is saying. I mean, those are very clear framework. But now, what I'm getting from this finance bill is that we are going to run away from that, collect the money, and then we'll start figuring out how to use it, unless I'm mistaken. That is where my fear and my worries are, because if we do go down that road, we are aware of how many scams we have suffered. This is going to be a bigger scam than the Golden Bag scam.
Alenga, when Mheshimiwa was speaking, you really had some burning issue, but I'll let you to do that. And still, when we're talking about politics, it's supposed to be, even the president said that he wants it not to be a secret ballot. He wants to see how the MPs vote. I believe Wanjiko should be the first person to tell the MP, the residents of Bomachoge Chache, that Mheshimiwa, we want to see which side you vote.
I was taken aghast when Mheshimiwa said that the essence of the housing levy is to raise funds to be able to provide houses for those that are not employed. So then I was just thinking in retrospective, how many people in Bomachoge are going to refuse to work completely because some employed people in Bomachoge will be taxed and then they will get a house, you know? So I'm just trying to understand, is this bill therefore then a progressive bill or a retrogressive bill that encourages a particular constituency of Kenyans to refuse to work because another constituency will be deducted to give them housing, you know? And then another issue I am looking at is, I think the whole idea of housing is a very fantastic issue, you know? But then I am just wondering why the Kenya Kwanza government has refused completely to hear from Kenyans on how best we could achieve this. For instance, if we had a PPP on this issue, where we have a public-private partnership, talk to agencies that are in housing already, and then make this housing levy be a voluntary issue, in the sense that you give Kenyans security, like for once, you're not dealing with a private company which might disappear with your money, but you're dealing with a government that has structures, so whatever you contribute is secure and safe. We have issues in land purchases in this country. So tell Kenyans, for the first time, this land will be allocated by government, so you're sure about the papers and everything. So there will be no other issue whatsoever, you know, so that Kenyans can tap into this housing levy voluntarily, and then you don't peg it at a particular amount, so that if I am well blessed and I want to have my house in less than 1 year, I can push there my 500,000 every month and I have my house, so that it is a competitive thing. And while that is happening, so that we can see testimonials, like when Troy comes and says, you know, I threw here my 200,000 every month, I have my house. So you can actually say, you can actually encourage some other person to say, hey, let me try it. But you know, we are doing this thing with faith, you know? We're just running with faith that maybe after 24 years, if I'm not dead, I'll have a house, you know? So clearly, this offends the very basic concepts of humanity, like this is how I'm planning my life, you get?
Anyway, the guy is negative about it.
So for me, I'm looking at it, I'm looking at it from that perspective. Like if it was a willing issue, an issue of willingness, then I can tap into it to the extent of my financial ability, so that I'm not limited to that minute expenditure, a minute expenditure that maybe if I was earning a salary of 1 million like the president, I would be wondering now, why are they deducting so little like this? Are they really going to raise a house out of this man? Are they going to really build the kitchen size that I want with this 1.5% they are deducting from me? You get? So those are the issues that the president would have opened them to dialogue, so that we streamline and see how best we can achieve this. Because that issue of housing, as it were, it's a fundamental issue, and this country has housing issues. But then if we just want to push it to the people without really understanding how do the people want. Because as Kenyans, there's also how we want things to be done. Even when we go and buy bread, we either want it with margarine or with eggs. We don't get the shopkeeper telling us, have bread.
Okay. Respond to that.
Yes, let me respond.
Something about the amendments.
Yes.
You have seen some of the amendments, and indeed, like we are talking about, the proposals to do 1.5% as opposed to the 3%. Also, the content creators. I want you to speak about the amendments.
Before I go to amendments, let me be clear about this housing levy. It's not something that has come now. It's something in every government is within its proposals. You remember between 2013 and 2017, Uhuru wanted to bring it back. And the only challenge Uhuru got as a former president during that time, court went to court and stopped it. In the manifesto of Azimio, you categorically see they say they would deduct 1.5 from the payslip and 1.5 from the employer. Now, to me, my small understanding, this housing levy is having problems to those ones who don't want it, because maybe his preferred person is not in power to implement it. That's the problem.
I believe the biggest problem is the framework of how
the framework is there already. We have houses. In Homa Bay, houses are being constructed. In President recently launched from Langata. Others have been
completed. Will tell us where they are anchored in law.
Wakili should understand that every ministry in Kenya, money is collected to a specific pool, then every ministry is assigned to spend and implement as per the requirements.
All right.
Yes.
Touch on the amendments.
Now, remember, this bill is in the stages of becoming a law. It has now been completed from public participation. The concerned committee has retreated in Naivasha, has made a lot of changes, maybe amendments. Now it's going to be introduced to Parliament. Now this is the time we're going to discuss about it. We debate about it, item by item. We reinforce our minds. We put our input, and then now we decide either to change, to amend, or to retain the way it is. And remember, there is no voting. Voting will only come when we are divided. If one side of the house is not satisfied, then we conquer in division, then now we will go and vote. Remember, there are several items in this financial bill. It's not only one. Because we are given around 3 to 4 days to work on it, and then now we decide about it. That's time. This is the time it's going to come to Parliament, and we debate about the bill. Yes.
All right. Wakili.
It's good Mheshimiwa is raising that there is a clear framework, but you know, we are Kenyans and we have been here. I mean, every money spent or every scam that has happened in this country, there's been a clear framework. I mean, and then money gets disappear. It has to disappear. So my worry or my advice would be, let's first talk this thing through. Let's have public participation properly on this, not in the finance bill. Let's just put this thing aside, discuss, have a clear framework, agree on which framework are we. If I'm going to get a house, how am I going to get it? Who is building this house? How is it that if I want to walk away out of this program, how am I going to be entitled to my money? Which, of course, they're trying to say, but we need a discussion in it. Those are the ideas. We need a discussion. Everybody loves a good house.
All right.
We have a challenge with housing. I've tried to take time and look at the mechanism which Singapore used, which is now one of the very successful countries in implementing that. The way we are going about this is not the correct way, because the legal framework they had is not what we are trying to embrace. I don't know when the president came here what they shared with our president, but clearly what happened there is not what is happening. This is something which can change this country, but we need it clear on law, and in every other aspect, we need this to be anchored in Kenyans' mind that there is nothing fishy. You see, as long as Kenyans feel that there is something fishy, you need to buy the minds of Kenyans. And that's what Mheshimiwa and the government should be able to array the fears in people's heads that, you know, this money is likely to disappear. We are being forced into this. It should be by a willing seller. That is why we need to have a situation whereby, as Kenyans, we need to come voluntarily, not being forced that you need to do this by force. So some of these things are things which are dear to Kenyans. Some of the, I'm seeing Mheshimiwa has already started to get worked up. I mean, and then after being worked up, they start saying now, these people don't understand. They dismiss it that, you know, these are Azimio people, these people don't understand. Some of us do not support Azimio, but we just want to be told in a very clear manner, like a 2-year-old, this is what is going to happen so that we understand.
Because of the interest of time, kindly, let's have a 1 minute and talk then as we wrap up.
I think as Mheshimiwa readies himself to go and debate this finance bill, and particularly the housing issue, there are just a few issues I want you to put into consideration. Number one, that bill does not distinguish who is an employer and who is an employee. So it just says an amorphous term, employer shall contribute this, employee shall contribute this. In that context, I'm trying to say this. There are expatriates in this country who don't intend to stay here. Maybe they have a short stay, 2 years, 5 years. They don't intend to own property here. But by dint that they are employees within that company that has brought them, they shall be subjected to this levy. Number two, there's also the issue of who will be in charge of this. The bill is incomplete about who will be in charge of the whole thing, because it says later on the Minister for Housing and the CS for Finance shall now work out a framework post facto. That is scaring to us. And then another issue about the housing levy is when you look at it from the perspective of securing jobs, it's going to give employers added responsibilities, and that might easily force some people to be kicked out of jobs, because that 1.5 maybe for a company that has 1,000 employees, like maybe a company like Safaricom, which has about 7,000 employees, how much money are they now going to put into that kitty? That will scare people who want to set up companies in Kenya, because it will now make our environment very expensive to pay employees.
Be going to bomb us, but the tyranny of numbers will work, right, Mheshimiwa?
Exactly.
Yeah, of course, the tyranny of numbers will work in the house.
So you have your way. All right. Unfortunately, we have to wrap it up. Thank you, gentlemen, so much.